Hey, it's Pete, North Las Vegas. We're back on the M4A1 carbine, trying to do a tribute to December 2008 M4A1 variant that was issued to the United States Marine Corps and the Navy. And I explained in the previous video that I'm not trying to do a SOP mod. I'm just trying to do a basic M4A1 for now. So I've been working on the lower, getting some bits and pieces installed. And I went out and got this lower kit here, minus forward control group. Okay. It doesn't have a pistol grip. Yeah, no kidding. And it doesn't come with a trigger guard. So I didn't read the box. I just saw lower parts kit in big letters and grabbed a couple of them. And it, like the box says, it did not come with the trigger guard. So my third FFL stop, I finally found one of my locals that sold this. And this came out of, I believe, a Brownells spare parts components kit. And normally I'm used to seeing these like a silver color, like stainless. So that's kind of different for me. I'm not used to seeing them. I don't know if that's phosphate or I don't know, black oxide. Okay, so anyway, he had two of these, and then I asked for three pins, just in case I mangled one. And I'm going to show you what I got without realizing it. Okay, so when I got back from my FFL with all my trigger guard bits and pieces, what I noticed was I asked for three pins in case I mangled one, or in case one was out of spec. So that was a good call on my part, because I'm getting ready to tell you why. But what I noticed was he gave me two of these spring or coil type pins, and he gave me one of these roll pin or split pin types. And I didn't check them before I left. He just threw all the stuff in a bag, and I didn't notice it till I got home. So the one I have installed right now is this spring pin or coil pin, and that's this one on the left. Now, I tried to install this pin, and it did not want to go in. I tried doing seeing if there's any burrs and chucking it up and trying to get the edge smoothed out. If I would have tapped that pin in here, bad stuff was getting ready to happen. So I'm kind of glad that, I ended up with the spring or the coil pin. And because of how it went in, I'm now kind of a fan of these spring pins versus the split or the roll pin. And that thing just was a little bit snug going in, but once it got started, and it just went in so nice. So I can't say that, I'm going to be a fan of using one over the other everywhere on an AR platform, but I think on trigger guards, if you're doing the mil-spec type or you need to put a pin in, I think I'm going to go with these from now on. Anyway, just thought I'd share that with you. Now we'll talk about some other things here. Okay, so I decided to go with an Aero upper. Coloration, it does seem to match the Palmetto State Armory lower pretty well. There's a texture difference. I don't know how well the camera's picking it up, but you can see the texture of the Palmetto State Armory. The anodize is a little bit rougher than on the Aero, but yeah, from a foot away. I said color's about right. Okay, so anyway, this thing came complete minus a charging handle. So it came with the forward assist and the ejection door. And it was, he had it for $95.95. Why does it have to be $95.95? I don't know. But anyway, it came assembled, and the only other thing that I was concerned about is that the T markings are laser etched. And I went to the technical data package for the M4A1 in 2001, and it does show that the upper receiver had T marks, but what I wasn't quite sure about was whether the original T marks were engraved versus etched. And I just said, well, whatever. The handguard that I have coming is laser etched, so that will match the upper, whether it's right or wrong. All right, well, what we're gonna do now is get a barrel mounted this thing. Okay, so before we get to the barrel, the way I do this is I'll snap my trigger guard into place with that spring-loaded button. And then we make sure we take a visual on this thing. You can put a punch pin in there, whatever you want to do, and make sure that this is going to line up with your ears. And I slide this in here. So when I'm tapping the pin in, that keeps the ears from collapsing. And then I support the other ear. This is how I do it. And I make sure that that ear is captured by the edge of the wood. And then I only tap it in with enough force to get it to move. You don't want to wail on the thing. So anyway, let me get it tapped in and we'll get on to the barrel. Okay, so this next part's true for pounding in any pin. Once you get it to a certain point, you want to double check and make sure that things are lined up and you're going to start in the other hole correctly. Otherwise, once again, bad stuff can happen. And then what I'll do is, once I get the pin flush, I'll take a roll pin. Focus. Anyway, that's a roll pin. And then I'll get the pin just below the surface without damaging the aluminum and get the pin perfectly centered on the ears. And we'll show you all that when it's done. Okay, so you can see that the spring or coil pin is flush on this side. And it's a bunch of grease right there, but you can see it's recessed on this side. So now we're going to take the roll pin punch, like I was saying, the correct size roll pin punch, and we're going to get both sides evened up because I will not put a pin in unless it's even. Right side of the receiver, you can see where the pin is located, and the left side. You can also see if you use the correct size roll pin and you're careful, you won't have any shiny aluminum. The only thing that gets tapped is the pin. One of the things I forgot to talk about before we get going on the barrel, the fitment between this Aero Precision and the Palmetto, there's like almost no imperceptible movement. I mean, it is a very nice, snug fit. Not so much that you can't get the pins in and out without too much effort, but this thing was just really a good fit, so I was happy about that. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about here on this barrel is the M4 cuts. And we're going to see where those line up onto the receiver. And the receiver M4 cuts. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so this is a nice fit. I'm having to wiggle it back and forth a little bit. I'm not having to really crank it on hard, but it's not a loose fit. It's nice and snug. So happy about that too. Okay, so I got the barrel on here. It's just snugged up by hand, but what I've noticed, if you get a good, tight, snug fit on the barrel nut, this relationship really doesn't change much. Okay, so right in here, you can see the M4 cuts on the barrel that we were talking about, lining up with the M4 cuts on the receiver. And what I'll do is I'll make sure that those are lined up, and then I'll take a sharp edge and come in here and make sure that we're not hanging up on the barrel extension off of the receiver. So that way when you're chambering around, the tip of the bullet doesn't get hung up on the edge of the M4 cut of the barrel. I'm going to do this part off camera because I've only got two hands, but we'll make sure that there's no hang-ups here. Now, if this barrel extension was sticking too far this way and you think you're going to run into a problem with the tip of your bullet hanging up, what you do is you put a shim here. Now let's say this barrel is too far forward. What you can do is lap the front of the receiver and until you get the barrel extension exactly where you want it on the receiver. But so far, just looking at it, it looks good. I'll let you know when I do the actual test whether it's good. Okay, so this area here is really good. Everything's lined up. and there's no hang up when I come in here with my the point of my knife. So we can now go torque this barrel on, and then I'm going to put the gas tube in. Okay, so this is something else you guys might not know, that the best place to torque a barrel on your receiver is underneath a 71 Camaro that you've been working on for 15 years. Okay, so one of the things I check here is this is my Midwest Industries upper receiver rod. And I make sure that, you know, that extension goes into the barrel without any issues. And that's like perfect. Very little movement at all. So I'm going to pull this barrel off real quick, and we're going to get some lubrication on both sides of the barrel lug, the threads, the extension inside the receiver, and then we'll torque this thing on. I usually try to shoot for around between 50 and 60 pounds. Minimum is 30, maximum is 80 foot-pounds. So let me get all this lubed up, and we'll get it torqued on. Okay, I'll be using a CMMG, and I've never had any problems with these. They've never been too loose or too tight. Never had any problems knocking the pins in. Bends always seem to be correct. By the time I get them in the receiver, as long as I, did my job, there's been no issues with the bolt carrier group keyway. So, yeah, never had a problem with CMMG. All right, I don't think I need to show you actually putting a wrench on here and tightening it, but like I said, I'm shooting for around somewhere between 50 and 60 foot-pounds and get that gas tube lined. Okay, so I ended up at about 65, 70 foot-pounds, which is a little bit more than I usually like to go, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do to line these teeth up. I got it perfectly centered. The gas tube is floating on the barrel net and inside the receiver housing, so we're aligned. And before I pin this thing in, I'm going to run a spare bolt carrier that I have somewhere and just make sure that we don't have any interference between the gas key and the bolt carrier and the gas tube. So it's lined up about right in the cam opening. So I don't expect a problem, but let's find out. I'm going to use an old Colt bolt that I had. This is out of my 1993 Match Target. And I don't know what was going on there with Colt. And you can see a very, very faint C. So even back in 93, 94, this one got marked pretty odd. Normally that's a pretty deep engraving. Like I said, this is all original, and this is a sear block bolt carrier. All right, let's see if we got any interference with the gas tube. All right, looks like we got another perfect gas key alignment. All I can feel is those bolt lugs just start to engage in the extension, but it's not binding up at all with that gas tube. So we're gonna call this good. All right, left side. Right side. Looking good. Okay, so one more thing today, and then we'll be good for a while. Okay, it's on there, about as straight as I can get it. It's about all I got for you today. I will be putting a side mount sling on here. I have a Geisley SSP single stage M4 trigger bow that's supposed to be showing up. Tried to find an original Colt long short selector. Nobody has one. I tried the next best thing, which is Schmid, and I think Schmid actually made them for Colt. Everybody's out of stock on those, so I may end up going with a Geisley. The Geisley won't look quite perfect on the right side here. It doesn't use a flat screw, a countersunk screw, which is not correct for this this retro build. It uses a cap screw, but the cap screw is kind of recessed a little bit into the lever, so it's not quite exactly like the Colt or the Schmid, but it'll be close enough. So buttstock, grip. I have a two-piece quad rail drop-in coming from Midwest Industries, and I got to get a bolt carrier group, and then I should be able to get this thing finished up. Anyway, Pete, North Las Vegas. Over and out.